What makes the timing right now? What is it about the luxury space right now that you think this move sort of makes sense as it is and this added focus?
The business is evolving. I've seen in the last 5 years, some national competitors come into play in the luxury space. This type of competition didn't exist before. Couple that with the evolving business and the change in the web and digital world and how consumers are shopping, having somebody focused on this to support our members, to listen to our members, and working with some of our key vendor partners, I think is just the timing's perfect. It's crucial.
Welcome into the Independent Thinking Podcast. This is your host, Rob Stott. It's kind of cliche to say about any industry, but the luxury appliance space has truly evolved over the last 20 years, 2 decades or so. From just a couple of brands that were singularly focused, into a category that now has countless myriad brands that produce all kinds of appliances and other kitchen equipment and things like that. So, and John O'Halloran, the senior merchant for appliances here at Nationwide Marketing Group, has seen that evolution over time, working in distribution with retailers and in the field with our members over the last year, and now in his new role as senior merchant for appliances with that focus on luxury appliances. And we had the opportunity recently to catch up with John, just a month into this new role and coming off of his first KBIS, the Kitchen and Bath Industry Show, as the senior merchant, and just a unique opportunity to get his take on the appliance space, on the luxury appliance space, and where he sees it going for members, where he's trying to take it in his new role, and the opportunities that exist from both just getting members to sell these products to how the category is evolving and what's new and exciting and innovative in this space. So really a great conversation, one that Nationwide is going to be having a lot more, with the vendor community and with members about luxury appliances. So excited to share it, excited to have John on for his first podcast ever, here with the Independent Thinking Podcast. So let's just go ahead and dive into it. Mr. John O'Halloran, our new senior merchant of appliances, here on the Independent Thinking Podcast. All right, we are back on the Independent Thinking Podcast, and super excited right now. A guy it's gotten a lot of press from us recently, and now we get to have him. You're a star, Mr. John O'Halloran, and I appreciate you finding time on your packed calendar for us in this measly little podcast. So thank you for stopping in with us.
Oh, thanks, Rob. Yeah, you guys do a wonderful job on our comms team, making me look good. So I appreciate it.
We try. So for those who don't know, Mr. John O'Halloran's our recently anointed senior merchant for appliances with that special focus on the luxury and premium space. So we are thrilled to have you, after a year, a little more than a year, I think, and with Nationwide and then this new role. So, let's start there. For those not familiar with you, what prior to Nationwide, what was John O'Halloran doing?
So let me talk about John O'Halloran real quick. I've been in the appliance industry for 20 years now. It's hard to think back because I always thought of myself as kind of the young kid in the business. And I still kind of think of myself that way, even though it's completely not true. But my career started in my early 20s with a company in Chicago. I still live in Chicago here with my family. And it was a family-owned appliance distribution company. And it was a luxury distribution company. So and some people might be familiar with it that are listening. It's a company called Oakton Distributors. We serviced quite a few members that are still with us today. But it was at a time when all the luxury vendors went direct through distribution, right? So they were not selling direct to retailers. Mm-hmm. And the other interesting thing was the vendors also only sold one category, right? So Sub-Zero was just refrigeration. Right, they didn't have the Wolf didn't exist back then. They did just purchase Wolf, but it wasn't a part of their portfolio.
Wow.
Thermador just did cooking. Bosch was dishwashers. And 24-inch laundry. So it was a completely different world back then, and it was awesome because I went from selling Yellow Page advertising which was a very cold sales process, right? Cold calling, getting yelled at, to all of a sudden this industry where you're walking into retailers and saying, hey, we're here to talk to you, or we're partners, right? And it was so warm. It was just such a unique experience. And so ever since then, I've just been in love with the appliance industry, you know. And a lot of people that are in it today will tell you the same thing. Once you get in it, it's really hard to get out. But it's because of the people, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
so I spent 7 or 8 years there, and had an opportunity to sell, brands Sub-Zero, Wolf. I'm sorry, not Wolf, but Sub-Zero, Thermador, Bosch, Uline, Scotsman.
Mhm.
We were part of the debut of the Bertazzoni product when it came to the United States. Blue Star Cooking when they launched. So I had the opportunity to do a lot of different things, working with builders, architects, designers, and then most importantly, retailers. And that's where I got my start working with a lot of our members today. So my relationship with a lot of our members goes back 20 years, which is crazy.
Yeah. So you're sitting here talking about yourself feeling like the young guy in the industry. I'm not going to say you're old because you're not, but you're talking like you are a grizzly veteron.
Yeah. Well, when you look back and you start looking at things,
Like,
you're like,
man,
oh
that went
wow,
fast.
I've been
That
doing
went
this for a
fast.
while, But I guess age is just a state of mind, right?
Amen, man. Amen.
So, but so I was with Oakton for a while, and then I had moved over and was recruited over to a company, Elmo Corporation, which is a phenomenal company based out right where you are,
Hey,
Rob, in
I know.
Philadelphia, man.
Right in the backyard.
Yeah. So I was, my role there was helping them launch the Samsung brand with key accounts throughout the Midwest, and which is awesome. It took me from Denver all the way to, I was working with accounts in Indiana and Ohio and all over the place. But at the same time, I had opportunities, with Almo to work in their premium division in Chicago, at one time in Pittsburgh and Cleveland, selling brands like Liebherr and Bertazzoni and Capital Cooking. So I've always had the experience working in the luxury space,
Yeah.
right? Although it wasn't necessarily my focus with Almo, I always still had an opportunity to kind of touch it, and it's always been my passion. The last 4 years I spent in Almo, I was managing our LG and Frigidaire team, which I had an awesome team working for me in the Midwest. And as much fun as I was having, I still had something missing, and I really wanted to try to find a path back to the luxury business. And so I met somebody, a member actually reached out and said, hey, you should reach out and talk to Tom Hickman and with Nationwide. And I knew of Tom. I have never met him before. I was very familiar with Nationwide because I've been working with the members and been going to the shows for many years. And so I did that, and Tom and I started talking, and he kind of gave me an insight that, they are looking at maybe doing something in the luxury space, a little bit more formal than what they've been doing. But they weren't there yet. And so we just agreed to continue, and I expressed high interest in, well, if you are, I would love to talk to you further about that.
Yeah.
And we kind of left the conversation there and just said, let's continue to keep in touch. And then a few weeks later, I got a call from Mike Manthe, who runs our core team. And Mike and I have been friends for many years. And Mike said, hey, listen, let's talk. I want to tell you more about what we do at Nationwide. And so a long story short, Mike, they had an opening within the core team, and Mike was looking for somebody. And I wasn't necessarily looking to get back into a field type position, right? But I saw the opportunity that jumping into that role could give me an opportunity in the path I was looking for to get back into the luxury business.
Yeah,
And so,
absolutely.
So it was one of the best decisions I made. We just had an awesome time working with Mike and the core team. And here we are today.
Yeah, and it's cool too, because it's not, you say you weren't looking to get back into the field, but that opportunity over the past year to do that, I mean, I think we'll get into it now here in a little bit, is something that sort of allowed you to get in touch with all these members, see what they're dealing with on the front lines, and then sort of take it back into this new role, which is really cool. So talk about that a little bit. This past year, you picked a heck of a year to try to come and be a field team member, by the way. I just want to point that out. 2020 was a year unlike any other. However,
it actually started in October, right?
Yeah,
19, right?
So you had a little bit of time.
Yeah. So you're right, though. But you're right. I mean, looking back, I mean, it was the best experience I could have had, right? And probably one of the reasons maybe why in the end that on top of my experience, though, that I was probably a really great candidate to be in the role I am today. But Yeah, I mean, it was a very comfortable transition because I was working with a lot of members that I had been working with for many years, right? But it was a transition for me because it was going from selling,
Right.
members, right, to being, more or less a support staff, almost like a consultant,
Yep.
to try to help them with their business. And which took me a little while to wrap my hands around, but it just gave me great insights, and I learned so much about the retail business and about the importance of all the things that Nationwide does, but all the different resources that we have available, right? Which is so understanding and working with our members on a different level, right, was really important for me. But then understanding all the resources and working with all our different business units inside of Nationwide, right,
Yeah.
that I didn't even know existed before,
Right.
right? So those two elements really coming together. I mean, being in the field the last year was just invaluable experience.
No, that's awesome. Is there one thing, maybe you don't even have to limit it to one, but you think about that time and being so hands-on with the members and kind of getting to see the struggles they face and challenges and being that support system for them. Is there anything that stands out that you learned that sort of resonates the most with you from the past year of working with them?
Yeah, well, I mean, it really, you get a first hands-on look at, especially in the last year, right? But how resilient, these guys are, right? I mean, our members and the independent retailer, for them to kind of, I can only imagine the stress of looking at your entire world, right, being shut down in March of last year, and then not knowing what the future is going to hold, right? And you're responsible for all of these families and everything that, you have responsibility for as an entrepreneur, and then just to try to grind through it, right, every day, and being a part of that, was so gratifying for me because we work together really closely. It brought us, our contacts, where I've talked to, members, maybe, once a week or once every 2, 3 weeks, just depending on the cadence. We were talking multiple times a day, just trying
Right.
to help and talk through different situations and share what other members were doing. So, so I just, the resiliency and how the independent retailer is able to pivot, I think, on the drop of a dime and be successful. I mean, how cool is it to see that a lot of our members, at the end of 2020, probably had one of their best years ever.
Which is
Most challenging,
unbelievable.
right?
Yeah,
Most challenging,
absolutely.
right? But one of the best. And granted, we're still not through it, but it's just a testament to them. I've always thought that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Okay, I've never either had the opportunity or the courage, right? So, so I just get so much satisfaction of being, I enjoyed it on the distribution side, but I really enjoyed on the Nationwide side to be able to partner with them to help them be successful.
No, that's awesome. And I mean, you got to do that for the past year. And now you're continuing to get to do it, but in a slightly different capacity. So let's talk about this added and added emphasis on the luxury business. And now you're kind of here what you were meant to do. You're here to do what you were meant to do. So the luxury space and this new role as a senior merchant on the appliance team. Talk about that a little bit. I mean, what kind of gets you excited about this new role and sort of the opportunities it presents you?
Yeah, I mean, so I don't know if it was what I was meant to do, but it was what I thought I was meant to do,
Yeah.
right? It took maybe a little convincing, right? But yeah, no, I mean, so what's exciting for me is just that, there's so much opportunity in this space. The independent retailer, our members are the experts, right? They dominate this segment of the business. They always have. Okay. We've never had somebody that's been 100% focused on the luxury business. It's always been part of somebody's list, of 10 other things that they're responsible for.
Right.
And so where did it become as a priority? Sometimes maybe it wasn't on the top, it was here, it was here. So I don't know if we were maybe doing, some of the vendor partners in that space justice, as well as really our members. And and so it's exciting to be in a different position, for the simple fact that you and I are talking today, I think is huge, right? Because we're talking about the luxury appliance business, something we wouldn't have done it maybe a year ago.
Right.
But to have somebody, it could have, if it was somebody else, but somebody that Nationwide has said, hey, listen, we need this individual to be 100% focused on the luxury business is really exciting. And Rob, it's not just me though too. So it's, I'm one resource, but we've also brought on another resource on our marketing team, Karen Brandon. And Karen is kind of going to be, she's quickly becoming my partner in crime, but to help me. But again, that's another person that we've brought in to be focused on the luxury space. So together we can partner together and establish what needs to get done and working with our members, right?
That's awesome. What makes the timing right now? What is it about the luxury space right now that you think this move sort of makes sense as it is in this added focus?
Well, I mean, I think so. What do they say? We listened to Bill Darcy's NKVA speech, the other day, and the e-commerce, business advanced 10 years in 8 weeks, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So my point of bringing that up is, the business is evolving pretty quickly. I've seen in the last 5 years, some national competitors come into play in the luxury space, with people like Ferguson, and people like Best Buy's pack sales
Yep.
model. Okay, this type of competition didn't exist before. So you couple that with the evolving business, and the change in the web and digital world and how consumers are shopping. Having somebody focused on this to support our members, to listen to our members, right, understand the challenges that they're facing, and working with some of our key vendor partners, I think is just the timing's perfect. It's crucial.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And so kind of along in the same vein, you talk about the timing. What are right now some of those opportunities? Probably a lot, I imagine a lot around digital, but what are some of those opportunities that, exist in this space for Nationwide members, specifically with luxury appliances?
Sure. Well, not giving away, the playbook 100%.
Yeah.
And Rob, we're only about 30 days into this. At least I'm okay.
Right.
So,
Yeah. 1 month in, how tell me what this is the checkup point. Let's go.
yeah. So, but the first and foremost, it's understanding what the needs are of the members, right? And that's something I'm starting to do, and it's going to be a big focus of what I do moving forward. But to look at a few of the things that are top of mind with me, and then I maybe even ask the members that are listening, right, to think about, right, because these are some areas that I think are important or will be important. You said it before, the web and digital, right? How do we work with RWS and Site on Time? If I was a member, and I'm looking at my web page, right, am I merchandising the luxury appliances the right way on my website today? I want that consumer to have the same experience as if they were in store, right, as they do when they're clicking on my webpage, right? I think that's very, very important. And and that's something I don't know, we really haven't focused on as much before.
Right.
But I want to bring a lot of attention to today, and not saying that, consumers are going to be, checking out, $10,000, $15,000 stoves and refrigerators online, right? But we want to make sure that if we're doing special, digital campaigns to drive that luxury customer to a website, that they're not underwhelmed, right? We want them to get an experience that drives them to want to reach out and connect with a salesperson, right? Go into the store to make sure that we're getting the proper conversions. So
no, that makes a lot of sense, and kind of brings up another question too. I know, again, on understanding only 30 days, right, of being in this particular role, but the last year in the pandemic, we know that it had a major impact on a lot of retail aspects and how our members are interacting and engaging with their customers. The luxury space, and you mentioned that you don't anticipate a lot of people making those big purchases online anyway. But have you either anecdotally or anything you've seen as far as the impact on the luxury appliance journey for a customer because of the pandemic?
Yeah, well, I mean, so the journey is so different than the core business, right? And that's
Right.
one thing that we all need. I think historically we've looked at and tried to utilize what we've done in the core appliance business and trying to adopt that to the luxury space, and it doesn't work, right?
Right.
So I think when we're looking at that, one thing we've learned through some test and learn type things that Jennifer Danko and her team have done is that the consumer's journey is much longer, and so what we need to do is our campaigns, if we're going to run a digital campaign, it needs to be run for a much longer period of time, and it needs to be more of an evergreen campaign, right, to try to capture that customer at different points in their customer journey. So I think there's something we need to do too, trying to expand our reach into the key influencers, right, and engaging with them. somewhat digitally or virtually. So I'm not sure if that answers fully your question,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, it makes sense. Like I said, and as you touched on, it's a very different experience. So, it just being able to focus on that now and kind of see how that evolves because of everything, and then also just working with the tools that we have. I'm excited to see kind of where it goes and how you and your growing team here can take it. So it'll be fun to watch, and certainly something that I know it's got some eyeballs. It's got some
yeah,
eyeballs. So
yeah. It's important, But there's other,
absolutely.
and there's other things we want to look at. I mentioned, the influencers.
Hmm.
How do we support the members in reaching and or effectively or create new technologies to reach out, communicate better with the designers and builders, right?
Yep.
Education's a big part of it, and then one thing that we've really started to talk about this year is our Primetrics platform, right?
Yep.
And on the core side, we've got the art tool, right? But historically, there's never been any type of insights into the luxury business, right? So if we can use our Primetrics data analytics, right, and start getting a better, more insights for our members into the luxury space, right? What SKUs are the top selling SKUs? What vendors are the top performing vendors? I think we can provide some insights that will help them make better merchandising decisions. So there's a lot of different things that we are going to tackle. But first and foremost, like I said, I need to understand what are the needs, what are the challenges that the members are facing.
And it's only been a month. We gotta
It's only
pump
been
the
a month.
brakes a little, right? No.
That's right. We got
However, you
time.
gotten all to all
This is
this
a
already.
long-term play, right?
Absolutely. And I know, you mentioned a month, and already a week of that has been donated to, you mentioned Bill Darcy and NKBA, the KBiz and IBS
Yeah.
show. We're just coming off of that. And, you get to kind of, I'm sure that's a show. You mentioned your history in the space. That's one you always had an eye on, but now as part of Nationwide and getting to experience it, albeit in a virtual format and a slightly challenged show this year. But what are some of the takeaways that you were able to glean out of that show this year?
Well, being virtual, right? It was not nearly as much fun as they normally are.
No, not quite, not
for,
quite,
for a lot of reasons,
not
right?
quite.
But it's a great chance to catch up with people you haven't seen in a long time. It's a great chance to network and connect with members, right?
Yep.
And really, it's a great chance to go see a product. So really, which was interesting because of the format and being virtual, and we had talked about this before, but for the first time, I was able to participate, and listen to a lot of the different talks and speeches that they're doing, and there's a lot of value in that. And coming in as Nationwide was real exciting because part of I went in with like what I like to say is radical open-mindedness. I wasn't there for a specific brand and try to sell that specific brand. I was there to kind of listen and learn and try to absorb as much information as possible.
No,
And
and absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely, and it's a great show for that. And we also, on those recaps we were doing, had the chance to talk about in regard to that education, just to be able to listen to those guys, and then, I mean, also, you get to see the product when you're in person in those booths, and it's set up in a way that they kind of intend you to see it, and they want you to see their product. But I know in a couple of the experiences that we were able to have, we actually, because of this virtual nature of the show, we were able to go into some homes that had these luxury appliances actually installed, to see how they are deployed, and what they look like in the quote unquote real world, right? So to be able to see that, just the virtual experience, yeah, I mean, I think we all miss and crave that in-person experience, and for a number of reasons, but to kind of experience that, the virtual presentation with sort of the real world mixed in there was just really cool.
it was. I mean, to be able, like you said, I mean, to go in to see product actually in consumers' homes, right?
Yeah.
And talk and listen to the designers and why they spec'd it in, right? To
Yep.
get their perspective. But then to transform us to a showroom in Chicago and get a demo on
Hmm.
a wall oven, right? And then to get transformed to Louisville and to take a look at a new product launch. I mean, it was very well done. So right, with the challenges that you do have, and the experience that you miss out, there are still some benefits, I think, for the virtual side. You wouldn't normally be able to get transformed and moved all around the country, right?
Absolutely.
In-person KBiz experience. So
No, it was a interesting show, and I know, like I can't say it enough. I don't think that we will enjoy being back in person sooner rather than later. But um, so what's what is your outlook for again, understanding only a month in, but your experience and history in the space, I think can lend to this maybe a little bit. What are sort of the things you're looking out for the rest of this year that are important to you and that you're kind of focusing on as you dive deeper beyond a month in this role?
Well, first off, I mean, I think, we're all very fortunate to be in the industry we're in, right? I mean, I think that became very clear coming off of KBIS, looking at some of the statistics that they were showing. I mean, the kitchen and bath industry, I think, is going to be up maybe 16%. They predict for the year, right? The average consumer has $194,000 in equity in their home. And I think you're an example of that, right? Maybe not the exact dollar amount, but they are reinvesting those dollars into, putting an office in, or really redoing their kitchen, upgrading their appliances. Okay.
Yep.
So we're very fortunate. And, my outlook is that it's going to be very positive. We are working right now, establishing some key vendor relationships, right, that we can work with our members on. And we look to bring a lot more focus, listening to what the challenges are from the members' standpoint and working to overcome them. This is not something, to set the expectation. This is not a light switch that's going to happen overnight, right? But this is something where I hope our membership, right, feels that they have an advocate in this space now. Okay. And I am their advocate, and we're going to be fighting tooth and nail to make sure that we're successful. And the ultimate goal, Rob, is, how do we innovate this business? Right.
Right.
And that's what I think, collectively we all can do together and be the leader in the industry. We have some of the best top experts selling luxury appliances in the group, right, today. And we want to make sure that we maintain that, right, and help some of the members that maybe aren't in that space or aren't as engaged in that space. How do we help them get more invested in there? Because it's going to help their overall business, right? And I believe it's very important for the long-term sustainability of the independent retailer.
No, that's phenomenal. And I feel like I could have you on here for hours and talk about the space, because there's a million ways we can go with it. And you're just to pick your brain a little bit on it is phenomenal and a lot of fun. So we'll be sure to do that. But I know, if we want to get you past a month working in this role, then I'm going to have to let you go and get back to working on behalf of the members. So
yeah, no, absolutely. Well, we got to make a date, a year from now. Let's kind of re-engage, right?
Absolutely.
Kind of see where we're at. But yeah, I'm excited. So, and if anybody has any questions, please, I'm available anytime to any of our members. Please reach out to your MSM or reach out to myself, and I'd love to engage and talk with you.
That's awesome, Mr. O'Halloran. And I appreciate your time. Appreciate you dialing in from Chicago and catching us up on the luxury appliance space, and look forward to catching up again soon, hopefully in person sooner rather than later. So
absolutely, bud. Thanks, Rob.
All right. And again, a huge thank you to John for taking time and sharing his thoughts. I know only a month into the role, but he's already making big splashes and has, done a lot to, change the focus and put more of an emphasis on this luxury space for Nationwide and for our members. So excited to see where he takes the category. Excited to see, how it evolves over time and where our members can take luxury appliances in their stores. So appreciate him taking the time to chat with us. And as always, appreciate you listening to the Independent Thinking Podcast, and we will catch you next time.